Funhaus is sponsored by ExpressVPN. You don't want your internet provider seeing all the sites you visit? Hide your browsing activity at expressvpn.com/funhouse.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Funhaus, the podcast where we talk about movies, news, and the like. I am joined by James Willems in the other room.
Hello, I'm in the other room.
And a guest that we're really excited to have on, Nick, a.k.a. Diction, a.k.a. a guy with really great movie opinions.
Yeah, all I had to do was bully you on Twitter.
I was going to say,
get on the show.
I was so happy when you said that you wanted to do it because we love having you in videos. I hope we continue to have you in more stuff in 2021. And
absolutely,
I love talking about movies with people that are passionate about movie discussion.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as you guys. Like, I like video games just fine, but I love movies way more. Like, I could talk. You can't get me to shut up about movies. It's actually been a problem with my friend group sometimes. They're like, "Oh, there goes Nick again." Talk about an obscure film we're never gonna watch, but okay.
Do you have a tough time being friends with people that are not movie fanatics?
I don't think. I think there's like once when I was in my early 20s, my friend's like boyfriend at the time just straight up said, "I don't like movies." And he didn't give an explanation. He just said, "I don't like movies." And I was like, I don't understand that. Like nothing, like not even like a Christmas story. Like nothing worked for you.
It's like
I don't like A Christmas Story, Nick.
It's like one tier above for me when someone goes like, they go, "I don't like movies," just broad statement, and then right below that is, "I don't believe in reproductive rights." That's how close. That's how close it is.
What blows my mind is the person that will say, "I don't like music."
Yeah.
Music to me is just like such a intrinsically human thing that I'm like, you're an alien.
Your mother's heartbeat.
Yeah, it's also, music is everywhere.
Yeah.
If you go out to different, stores or whatever, or like anywhere, there's probably music playing. So you just constantly hate life, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you must really hate Universal Studios, where there's like 3 different music tracks playing over each other at any given time. But yeah, you're one of those people that I feel like I know your movie preferences from social media. And and when you see somebody, you don't necessarily you've never met them in person, but you know them on social media, and you're like, I like this person because I see how their brain works in terms of movies.
I have scaled it back. I used to tweet a lot more about movies, and I realized, especially this year or last year, I mean now, with everything happened, just like I'm being a little too negative. I would talk mostly about movies I hated and like create threads, and like I don't take back those opinions, but I just like there was a certain point I was like, I'm gonna just like, I don't like a movie, maybe I'll make one sarcastic post about it, and then that's it, and I'll drop it.
Yeah. I don't know what it's not necessarily movies. I think also television has done it too. That I've kind of come more to terms with not getting so angry. Like something has to be really offensive to me, like in terms of how it was made terribly, for me to like actually care anymore, or like publicly care. So like if you ask like what movies do I hate, I think Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom are like 2 of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But anything else, if it doesn't come nearly as bad as those movies, I would say like, whatever, I'll move on. Like there's no fight here. I'm not going to fight anyone else.
It's also finding those hidden gems and silver linings in movies you don't like. People loved Venom. I didn't like it, but it gave us Sorry About Venom. The moment at the end of the movie when Michelle Williams and Venom and they're sitting on the porch steps together, and she just goes, "Sorry about Venom." like that. Venom. Somebody wrote that line, and she Oscar-winning actress said, "Sorry about Venom."
Yeah, no, but Venom also is terrible. They didn't have takes on that movie. Go ahead.
So we're talking about movies, and I thought we'd kick it off by just talking about some of the movies, TV that we've watched over the last 2 weeks. We've been, out of the we've been out of the office for a year, but we've been out of the office for, the break. And James and I consumed a bunch. And from what you sent me, you watched a lot.
I watch a lot of TV just in general, especially on the weekends. That's like all I do basically, because like what else is there to do?
I love a good binge.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cobra Kai season 3. I did that last weekend. Great.
Did
Actually,
you?
like, because I know I saw the episode where James talked about it, and you had like like the whole caveman analogy where just for some reason Johnny's just like
Oh yeah,
doesn't know
yeah,
how to
yeah.
use technology.
Yeah, he
And
was
I get that.
unfrozen.
Yeah, exactly. But one of my friends on Twitter kind of summed up why I love the show, and I don't know if he was saying it positively, but I took it positively. He said it's Degrassi with fight scenes,
Okay. Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I unapologetically love Degrassi. Like I used to watch it.
Really?
Right? When I was in
Can I?
college, me and my roommates and my friends between classes, we would go back to my apartment because I lived like across the street from the community college, and we would like catch the newest episode. We were hooked on that show, and like we thought
Did
it was silly. We thought it was the dialogue was stupid. Character motivations were weird, situations were dumb, but we were hooked,
is
absolutely hooked on that show.
is this the original Degrassi or the
Next
reboot?
Generation, the one
Okay,
with
okay,
Drake. Yeah,
okay. Because when I was a kid, they would play reruns of the original one, and then when the new one was coming out, I remember seeing a promo for it. And in the promo, it was just this girl who was, 13 years old or whatever, and she got her period. And then she was just walking weird. And I was like, I'm not watching this show. I'm not the audience for this.
And that
But
that
Nick
girl
was.
grew up to be Drake.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that girl grew up to be Nick.
Oh, no.
He saw himself.
Some
in
of
that.
my we're getting way off topic, but some of my favorite memories are those things that you would watch just because you somehow for some reason got hooked on it. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe some of your friends got hooked on it too, but it's like completely off time. One of my favorite ones is I used to watch S Club 7.
I watched it too.
oh yeah,
S Club 7, which is like a show, is like basically a Disney Channel show not made on the Disney Channel. Like
had
made
Linda
by
Blair in it.
was she
like-
in like a guest episode?
No, she was like, oh, wait, maybe no, that's S Club 7. Yeah, it's Linda Blair. She was like the older woman that they would hang out with for some reason, like their landlady or something.
Really?
Maybe are you
Yeah.
thinking
A
of
British
S Club
show?
7 in Hollywood? Because they went to Hollywood.
Yeah, when they
at one
went
point.
when they were in California. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, I
okay.
was S Club 7 in Miami, and when they left Miami, I went, I was in it for the setting
okay.
Yeah,
mostly.
you left your heart in Miami.
Yeah, I left my heart there. But yeah, for some reason, I was like, yeah, I kind of like it's like a comfort show. Like it's bad for you, but
And it
like
was
you don't
cheeky and
mind.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the
Cobra
sign that
Kai.
says "Danger at alligators." Oh, Paul, what a cut up!
Cobra Kai is a show that I can't believe it got the promotion it did on Netflix and just catapulted the way it did through Netflix. It's just
Well, it's
it's
just
such a,
sitting there on YouTube for 2
Yeah.
years, no one watching it. Even though
It's
all
such a-
the critics are like, "This is amazing. It shouldn't be. Why is no one watching it?" It's like, oh, because it's on YouTube and you have to pay for it, and that's for some reason people don't like paying for YouTube at all.
I have YouTube just to get rid of the ads, and because we work in it, and so we're using it all the time. Like I have YouTube Premium, formerly Red, right?
Yeah.
I have it, and never watched. It was like always one of those things. But like when you don't have a queue, and you don't have something that you log in every single day with the intention of using it a specific way, like you just don't. So like the idea of like me sitting down and then putting Cobra Kai on YouTube while I was like working or whatever just like didn't fit the vibe. And then as soon as it was on Netflix, like everyone started watching it, and it's just like, yeah, that's because that's where people go to YouTube.
that's the platform.
Yeah, people go to
Yeah.
YouTube. I go to YouTube to watch like Korean chefs making street food silently, or a video of someone mixing two kinds of acrylic and pouring it over a basketball. Like that's why I watch YouTube, not to necessarily watch narrative things. So
Were you a big Karate Kid fan of the movies, Nick?
When I was a kid, yeah. I mean, it's been. I haven't seen them since I was like probably like 10, 11 years old.
What if I told you that there's a 36-year-old man that watches them almost yearly?
I love
In your
I love
presence.
Karate Kid. I love Karate.
possibly be?
I love those movies so much. They're so good. I mean, I also liked them a lot as a kid, but I really got into it kind of like in my like late teens because I was like, the first movie is so well made. It's so good. and it's like such an expertly crafted movie, and I think it does everything that it needs to do. There's this one shot that if you want to question whether or not this movie is made, because it's the guy who made Rocky, you know, like he made Karate Kid, and you wouldn't put them in the same camp, right? But they are made with the same kind of like attention to detail. There's this one shot where they're really into the training, and Mr. Miyagi has like a catcher's guard on and like a mask, so that way Daniel can practice punching him, and he's telling him like follow through on the punches and stuff like that. And it's one shot, and it starts close and just pulls back, and as it pulls back, it shows like the whole Pacific coast, and it has like Mr. Miyagi's old car. Like it's a perfect shot. If it hasn't been on the Perfect Shot Twitter account, it should be like, and it's just one thing. And I'm like, it's so meticulous that this movie doesn't get enough credit for being that way the whole time. And I also really like 2 and 3 because they're pretty great sequels that expand. So like first one is Daniel's story, and then the second one is Mr. Miyagi's story, and then the third one is how they become kind of a family together. And like, they're fun.
Beautiful.
It's like a really good, and they all pick up where the last one left off, and like you think, because you think about like, oh, number 2 is Karate Kid goes to Japan, but it really isn't that. Like the movie spends a good amount of time like giving reason and justification for why they're going to Japan and what happened to Elizabeth Shue in the previous. Like there's all these explanations that most sequels don't even bother with anymore. So I appreciate the movie's attention to detail.
I haven't seen Cobra Kai. James has watched the first 2 seasons. I feel like he's putting off watching season 3 because he doesn't want it to be over.
I've only watched the first season.
Oh, only the first season?
I've only watched the first season. So I watch a lot of things after Elise goes to sleep. But those things I watch with captions on and basically on mute so that way she doesn't wake up. But Cobra Kai is a show that I want to watch. I don't want to just read it and like fall asleep to it. Like there's other certain programming that I'm fine falling asleep during, but I want to watch Cobra Kai. So a lot of times it's like, well, I'm folding laundry or whatever, but then it's weird now because I don't want to just put it on and Elise is like in the middle of season 2 and she doesn't necessarily know what's going on, and so
just make a day.
I need
watch
to
all 3. I'm
just gonna binge it.
Can you talk without spoilers then about what season 3 is doing?
No, but it will. James will love where it goes.
Because my understanding is
because of how much he loves the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my understanding is that Cobra Kai kind of takes your expectations for Johnny and Daniel and flips them.
Yeah, it inverts them to a degree, not totally, but yeah. This the basic concept is Johnny, went on to be a nobody, and he views the relationship with Daniel that he was the bully and Johnny was the victim, and so that's where it takes off from there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And then I think the idea of what Cobra Kai represents, of like these outcasts, like these people, like I do appreciate that in 2020, or I guess the first season would have been 2018 or something like that. I appreciate that they were like, sometimes you do have to fight for yourself. And that's something like, it feels like it's a theme that you're not always willing to teach kids now. Yeah. Like everything is like, settle it in a different way. But like sometimes the answer is being like learning how to feel more confident in yourself, grow stronger, and then fight for the things that you know are right or fair. But then also at the same time, at least again, I'm only speaking for season 1. It also does a great job of warning what happens when you think that the fighting is what you're fighting for and not the actual justice of it, if that makes sense. Like it's a slippery slope if you just think fighting will solve everything. But sometimes you need to fight, and that's like kind of the difference. Anyway.
That's Cobra Kai.
Thanks for coming to our Cobra Kai podcast.
The one thing we did binge over the break, which probably shouldn't have, was Bridgerton. I don't know if you're in the Bridgerton universe, Nick.
Not yet, no, but I've been seeing it blow up on social media. I'm not a period piece guy. I never have.
But
I've
you
never
watched
read
Degrassi.
Pride and Prejudice. I've never
I don't
seen the
blame
movies.
you. I don't blame you.
It's an era that doesn't fascinate me. I did love The Favorite though, but that's because I like the director.
Yeah.
And what he did with it, he made that everything was so funny and weird and like off kilter. So I like that, but like yeah, I'm sure Pride and Prejudice is great. It's just not an era that I've ever been fascinated with. It just doesn't do it.
I'll
For
tell
me.
you, I'm not a Jane Austen person either. I do think that the 2006 Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, which I have seen, is pretty fantastic. Like I think I was surprised by how much I like that movie because it's so cinematic too. Bridgerton, not something I would have watched, but man, it is a salacious good time. It does get to a point where it's just Bone City nonstop. Spoiler.
Takes a weird tonal shift into
it's a weird tonal shift, but it would be remiss not to mention it because I feel like it's so part of the zeitgeist right now. And it is like, I'm not a person that also enjoys that kind of teen television content. But God, it's just, I was shouting, I kept shouting, Bridgerton, because I didn't know any of their names, and there's so many I still don't know how many Bridgertons there actually were. There's a family
every
named
single
Bridgerton.
time someone says Bridgerton. I think there are 6 Bridgertons.
I kept calling the main character Bridgelina Bridgerton because I didn't know who she was.
Yet you watched.
I shouted
you
at
watched
that
10
show.
hours or whatever of Bridgerton.
I watched 10 hours. I don't know her name, but I shouted. It's one of the shows that I was just like, you know, when you get into something and you just you have visceral reactions to it. That was Bridgerton. That's all I'll say about it.
It's on the list. It's already on the list.
You can put it pretty far down the list, but it is the kind of thing where if you watch Downton Abbey, or if you didn't watch Downton Abbey, you were like, it doesn't
I never
seem like
finished Downton Abbey, but I did enjoy the first season that I watched.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone finished Downton Abbey because as soon as Lord Grantham or whatever left, it's like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't care about Mr. Bates. But that show felt like it was kind of about nothing. Like, truly, what were the stakes of that show before it became a melodrama? This show is like, let's modernize it and let's understand that, like, not everyone has a British sensibility for slow drama. So and also let's make sure we get some ass pounding or whatever. Like let's make sure we have at least 1 or 2 shots of a butt slapping between 2 thighs.
All right, it's going higher up on the list.
Yeah,
Much higher.
You had another show on your list that I love, and we're getting another season in just a few days. Full disclosure, we work for the company that makes it. It's Search Party.
Oh yeah, I binged that pretty hard. It was great.
Did you? I was one of those people that watched the first season when it came out and then had to wait like an agonizing 2 years or whatever for the second season. And
every time the episode would pop up, the date would show, and it's like 2016. I'm like, what? Like, I had no idea this existed. And I'm a big fan of, the whole cast, but John Reynolds in particular.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because I watched that movie where he and I forget the actress's name. He was in Mr. Robot, but they go on like a vacation in the woods, and then the aliens attack. I forget what it's called. It came out last year.
I've seen that.
Yeah, but it's very he was really, really funny in it. And then when I saw he was on the cast, I was like, oh great, and he continues to be really funny. But so I'm really looking forward to season. Was it 4 coming up?
Season 4, yeah. Now they're just churning them out.
It's really hard to describe it to people and make it sound interesting.
Yes,
because you have to preface it with, all right, so it's about 4 self-possessed millennials. And then after that, people are just going to, tune it out. It's like, no, but they get involved in this weird mystery, and then just a bunch of crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like, it's neuroticism and self-obsession, the show.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's kind of like what Schitt's Creek is for Wealth in a lot of ways, where like you have to kind of sit through some of those early episodes being like, but I don't like, why do I like these characters? And it's like the show is basically going like, we'll show you, stick with us. And then you're going to be in the middle of season 2, and you're going to be like, I can't imagine life without these characters. And all I want to know is what happens to them next.
Like The Good Place, it clicks at the end of season 1. And then you say, okay, now the show is starting, really and truly.
Yeah.
But it's still very entertaining up to that point. But it is one of those like, there's a huge shift in the narrative. And then it becomes something completely different in a very good way.
And John Early, I forget his character's name. He's Elliot.
Elliot.
God, he's just so funny. His timing's so good.
His comedic timing is perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It's a great cast all around for that show.
Yeah.
They're all perfect for the horrible, delightful people that they are.
And like spoiler talk now, the lawyer that they introduced in season 3, I loved her so much.
Oh my God, yeah.
She
just made the rest of them look so bearable as human beings. Just from her, like the way she talks and everything. And I love her.
Yeah.
Elise and I were talking about it, I think through the framing of Seinfeld or whatever, but I really love when shows Springfield themselves. They start like, and I feels like it's a thing for lots of great comedies. But like they start with this small cast that seems like pretty wacky characters, but then through the wackiness of those characters, it allows permission for you to introduce new characters
that are even wackier.
That are even
Maybe
wackier.
Plass's character is just,
but
Louis
as
Anderson.
opposed, go ahead.
Louis Anderson's in it. Like
Louis Anderson. I thought you were talking about the Life with Louis show. Yeah.
When he says that thing about how he's got a year to live or whatever, I died.
But like I always love that kind of stuff because the fear I think is always that you're going to end up with like a Steve Urkel Family Matters type situation, right? Where like there's kind
you
of
accidentally make the greatest show ever made.
Well, yeah, but even Family Matters is like a relatively normal family, and then this wacky scene-stealing character that shows up, and then eventually the introduction of Waldo. but it's. I don't think that you can be like, I know the whole wacky community of Family Matters. You don't really. You know that one house, and you know Steve Urkel, and that's kind of it for the most part.
Yeah. Parks and Rec is the sitcom textbook of building out that wacky universe.
Yeah, Parks and Rec is great. But again, I think like Springfield is a perfect example of like that poster that everyone had on their college dorm wall, which was the yellow poster with all of the characters on it and stuff. And like Search Party is a show that totally becomes that, you know, as it starts to like tack these new characters in. And I love that stuff. I love that evolution.
Middleditch and Schwartz. Have you just been watching through their improv?
Well, I've just been watching the only 3 episodes available on Netflix over and over again because it's just genius, like absolute genius. And normally I don't think improv is that interesting. I think that it's like, well, like, you know, like improv troops, you know, like it's like everyone's got to be an upright citizen brigade. And not all of them have what it takes. There's a lot of dead air.
Shout out to my groundlings.
No, but just like the concept of just 2 people on stage, like creating dozens of characters, and like the best bits are when they forget who they are or what the name of another character is, and then you just have like a completely out of character moment where they're, you know, there's one bit where they play Rochambeau and they just go out of character. And he's like, "I'm gonna beat you." It's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you are." And then he does. Yeah. Spoiler, but like,
They
came at the right time, but at the wrong time because now we're not going to get new episodes for those. Because it's an audience show. Yeah, you have an audience.
If you haven't seen it, it's live performances that they do where they perform, you know, 90 minutes of improv together, or an hour of improv together. And James and I we were really lucky that a few years ago we saw them at the Largo in Los Angeles doing their show. And it was at the time where we were very familiar with Ben Schwartz from Parks and Rec, but our only experience with Thomas Middleditch was on Silicon Valley, where he's kind of just this like nebbish straight man, right?
Yeah.
And so
he's actually like an actor, like a real. Yes. Apparently, he's like best friends with Patrick Stewart.
Oh, really? He's really.
Yeah, they did they have like I forget which YouTube channel, but they do like actors on actors. They have 2 actors sit down and interview each other, and he has one episode where he's interviewing Patrick Stewart. I guess he did this. He had this like thing he used to do where it was like improvised Shakespeare. So they would they would have to speak like they're in Shakespearean, but they would improv the show. And Patrick Stewart was on like a bunch of episodes, and they just became really good friends.
Yeah, so, I gotta look at that. Well, we went into this thinking like, oh yeah, Ben Schwartz, you know, he's a dynamo, he's super funny, we're gonna love him up there. You know, not really expecting, and Thomas Middleditch just like blew us away with how funny he was.
Yeah.
And I'm the type that, like you, not so into improv troupes, but I have such the utmost respect for the 2 or the 3 person improv teams where it's just like constant synergy, just like firing on all cylinders and having that rapport.
Yeah, I was like rapport is the thing. And not to get on, I know this is Funhaus and not Improv House, but like I've been to so much improv in Los Angeles, UCB, everything. I've been to so many shows. I've seen so many improvisers. And the biggest thing that people miss out on is that they think the rules are what's going to make them a good improviser, because they go to class, they pay money to go to classes to learn the rules to being a good improviser. And I would say rules are important. If you get into a scene with someone and they go, wow, like this horticulture lab is just beautiful, and you go like, no, it's not, it's a grocery store, like, or whatever, like, yeah, like you're gonna break everything and it's not gonna work. Yeah. But I would say that's maybe 5%. The other 95% is having a rapport with someone that you may not necessarily know what they're gonna say, but you know where they're gonna land, and so you can prepare for it, and they also know where you're gonna land, so they can prepare for it. Because then you still allow for the stuff that you just described, Nick, where like they break character. Right? Which isn't necessarily great improv, but it only works because the rapport was there and they both kind of were okay with this happening at this particular moment and knew that comedically this is the right timing for us to break, right? And that's the most important thing, as opposed to knowing the rules. And so those two just have an amazing rapport, and 99% of the improv groups I've seen in LA, there's like 2 of them that like you can see like know their own sensibility and someone else's sensibility, and then there's like the 4 or 5 other members of the group who also chip in to get improv lessons, like that are not on the same page, and it's such an uncomfortable watch. We
won't have to dwell on it, but I have to mention Ghosts, which you can watch on HBO Max, not sponsored, because it's a BBC show about this couple that inherits a rundown English manor, and when they get there, surprise, there are ghosts. And it's really funny, really charming. I can't recommend it enough. It's great. Yeah. James and I actually ended up watching a couple movies thanks to you, Nick, over the last couple days. And one of them that I was like blown away by was The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I'd been meaning to watch, knew it was Sorkin, but just kind of put it off as like, this is going to be heavy. It's going to be a heavy watch. But and I probably shouldn't say this, but it's kind of more fun than it should be with the heady subject matter.
It's got an energy. Like for a courtroom drama, it constantly feels like it's in motion. And I mean, it helps that he gets to cut back to the riots and the events that led to whatever's happening. But I was utterly compelled by that, and also like couldn't have been released at a more topical time. Like, like the timing of that was just crazy. I'm a big fan of Sorkin. I don't think he's perfect. He has a lot of sensibilities that I don't exactly vibe with most of the time. But honestly, he was dialed in for this one. Really. And he had to go through, I don't know how many hours of court transcripts to adapt that. Yes, like he actually like read all of them.
Do you know how accurate the court transcripts and like dialogue is to what really happened?
I don't. I read that like it's like he had to omit a lot of stuff for the sake of the drama, but apparently what is there in the movie is like pretty accurate. Like, it's pretty accurate.
I heard very telling of who I am as a person, but I listened to an NPR interview with Aaron Sorkin, and this would have been when the movie was like first kind of dropping on Netflix, which I feel like was like kind of towards the summer-ish, end of summer, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think so.
But he did an interview, and I think he said that like he's like the Stephen King of screenwriting, like he's just an insane, crazy person who makes it every single day of his life. But I think he said the first draft for this script was like 500 pages or something, like something. So he like wrote 500 pages. He described it as basically making the marble that you would then carve a statue out of. his first draft was like the marble block, and he was like, I know I'm not going to keep everything here, but still he put like 500 pages on a screenplay, which if for anyone who doesn't know is like like the longest movie ever. 500 pages,
That's the
60
mini
pages
series.
is like an hour, right? Like, so it was like some insane draft that he had gone, and then he had just basically went in and like chiseled things down and chiseled things down and chiseled things down until he had. But yeah, it's super tight. It felt like it flew by too. The movie, like
I immediately wanted to just rewatch it once it was over, even though it's almost like 2.5 hours long, but it does not feel like it at all.
yeah.
It's also a point of American history that I don't know too well. Being from Canada, I don't catch it all.
Well, even being American, even if you were American, you might not know it because
I'm American. I didn't know about it.
Oh, it was great to learn about.
I knew about
like,
the issues
that
they were
riot.
talking about, but the actual event itself, I had no idea.
yeah.
And I loved, I know everyone had been praising Sacha Baron Cohen beforehand, but they were right. He was great in it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that always forget the actor's name, but
The judge,
the
terrible
Eddie
terrible
Redmayne?
judge.
no, Eddie
The
Redmayne's
lawyer, the main guy, Eddie Redmayne.
JGL.
What's the serial killer?
Drew
narrows it
Carey's brother.
Drew Carey's,
Wait, what?
John Lynch.
John Lynch.
John Lynch.
John
Yeah.
Carroll Lynch.
John Carroll Lynch.
Carrey's brother?
No,
he
on
played.
Carey's show.
My first entry point for him was he played Drew Carey's brother in
You're dating yourself.
The Drew Carey
Okay.
show.
Got it.
That was my first entry point for him too. But then he also, what's the Mark Ruffalo serial killer movie? Zodiac. For now, he'll always be the presumed Zodiac killer to me. Ever since that movie,
Ted Cruz, though. We found that out.
He's so eerily, just his performance in that creeped me out big time.
I always align him with Marge's husband from Fargo.
Oh,
And just
yeah.
the very beginning where he's like, I'll go make some coffee, and he just gets out of bed and goes, and hawks up a loogie and then walks off screen. And just like that was just embedded when I saw that for the first time. So like, I like this guy. I'm gonna remember his face.
But yeah, you had that on your list, and I probably would have kept putting it off if it wasn't for you. So thanks, Nick. So it was great.
By the way, I had suggested watching. There's certain things on this list that I had suggested watching a couple times.
And I said no.
But it's my suggestion now.
I'm going to start messaging you when I want to watch something with Elise. So then you just tweet her about it or
I'll
something.
go, did you know Nick said we should check out Independence Day, which I've never seen?
Independence Day Resurgence, the better version.
Oh,
Are you joking or are you serious? I never saw it.
No.
James
I thought that maybe there's something I had missed.
To watch. It was painful.
Nice.
we watched Men in Black over the holiday because I had never seen it.
Oh, I love that movie.
I love it too because it's great and it's extremely well made. Elise,
Very well made. It's a little too short because I would just
It's a little short.
Yeah,
That's why
I wanted
there's
to
two
live in
others.
that world a little bit longer. And when when the sequel came out, I was like, yes. And I watched it and I was like, oh, shucks. Okay.
I feel like the third one is better than the second one.
The third one is better, even if it does have unfortunate, logic holes because it's a time travel movie. But still,
And it also miscast young Tommy Lee Jones with Josh Brolin as opposed to Josh Hartnett, who we all know is Tommy Lee Jones from a Time Warp. So
I agree. I did think it was a bit short, and maybe I imagined that there was going to be more world building than there maybe was in this universe where these agents exist. I thought it was fine. I think it either may be more nostalgia that's leaning into your two opinions.
no,
Then
it's tight.
and that's the final word, and no one can say anything to rebuff me because now we'll hear from a word from our sponsor. The curators at Bespoke Post have done it again this winter with an all-new lineup of Essential Box of Awesome collections for you, guaranteed to upgrade your life. Right now, you can get things like a pancake kit, okay, or a really nice grown-up weekender bag that's going to impress all your friends. Whether it's to showcase pieces to level up your indoor hosting skills or cozy threads for those blustery days, Bespoke Post only sends guys the best stuff every month. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. James and I, we got that knife. I've talked about it before. One of the best knives we own. It is the best knife that we own. I can say that confidently. So just take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right Box of Awesome for you. There are new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up, and you can skip a month or cancel anytime. Each box costs only $45, but has over $70 worth of gear inside. So get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code FILMHOUSE at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code FILMHOUSE for 20% off your first box. Thank you, Box of Awesome.
Sponsorships always cutting off my rebuttals.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. If you guys want to say anything about Men in Black, now is the time.
I mean, sure, Will Smith now having been a caricature of himself for so long, right? Like, I get that maybe his performance in it isn't as charming because everyone knows Will Smith and how Will Smith is now. But I still think that this is like the first time he really got to break out. Because like he's in Bad Boys, but Bad Boys he's like tough. That was like him steering away from his Fresh Prince of Bel-Air image, very like harsh.
He still like drops a lot of jokes in Bad Boys, but the idea is that he's like the badass version of this duo. The other guy's married and has kids.
Yeah.
He's single and he doesn't want to get tied down.
Yeah, but him as Jay and Men in Black is like, oh, he's clearly an action lead. He can clearly be an action lead because he's the action lead in this movie, but it still feels like Will from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air if he was an action lead. It has like both when he's doing the test and he drags the table over, like it has these like great comedic moments. And so I think it's very tight. Yes, the world is maybe not as expansive as you would imagine for a movie where its premise is secret alien society, but I think it did allow them to only do things that were worth doing. So like a lot of animatronics and a lot of things that felt real and like most of the stuff. The only thing that kind of aged not great was like the baby squid, but like even at the time that didn't look amazing. And so
it kind of didn't have to because like they were clearly pulling from the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Is this movie based on comic books?
Yeah.
Comic series.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I haven't read them, but I hear they're good enough to make a movie out of apparently. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the effects are fine because one, it was 1998, 99 or whatever when people were still trying to chase that ILM dragon, you know? Mm-hmm. And actually ILM, I think, did this because Steven Spielberg produced it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of because everything looks cartoony, even like kind of the human characters sometimes look pretty cartoony.
Which is maybe a stylistic
the way
choice.
He shoots stuff, you know, it kind of exaggerates people's facial features a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate if like you're going to make that stylistic cartoonish choice and that's going to be what holds up. You know, you're not going to lean into fidelity in your CG and you're going to go, well, we'll make it look a little bit silly and then it won't age as bad.
Well, because Barry Sonnenfeld has always been like Tim Burton light. Like he's like a Tim Burton who didn't buy into his own aesthetic as like the only way to make a movie in some cases. So like I think it's a really fun way to make it feel, like you said, like cartoony but you're still clearly watching a movie.
Nick has a movie on his list here, Paddington. Never heard of that. We'll just skip over that one.
Okay.
Was that Paddington 1? You watched Paddington 1?
I haven't seen 2 yet, but I finally watched Paddington like a few weeks ago. I know because I tweeted about it and you guys were really excited.
I'm so excited for you, Nick.
It was lovely. It's a lovely film. My only problem with it was that I felt like it didn't really need a villain character.
Sure.
So
like I'm fine with Nicole Kidman's performance. I just feel like her character, there could have been a conflict for Paddington to deal with that didn't have to be a villain trying to murder him.
Well, Paddington 2.
It's a lovely film.
Paddington 2 is still, in my opinion, a perfect film. and everyone goes, but Paddington 1 was so great, and I go, Paddington 1 has a sense of like malicious dread, which I feel like you could make a movie without, and I think Paddington shows that you can make a movie without that malicious dread. That is
so that was kind of like
just
their blueprint, and then now in the second one they kind of nailed it in. Okay, I was gonna watch it anyway, but
well, you better do it, but actually savor it.
Yeah. Oh man, you're blessed.
Mm-hmm.
When are you gonna watch it? I don't think Lindsay said in that Twitter thread she hadn't seen it either. Correct?
Lindsay has not watched a lot of things.
I know.
Instead of watching the newest hit show, she will rewatch season 3 of Friends.
Yeah, it's true.
And I adore.
She does
Lindsay,
watch a lot of TV.
Don't get me wrong.
And you love Friends.
And I love the memories I have of watching Friends when it first aired.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't want to spoil those by rewatching it and finding that everything is dated, not funny.
Ooh. All right. Fair.
Could this be any more hurtful to Lindsay?
Oh,
probably. No, but I'm so glad that you're getting into the Paddington train. Tenet.
Oh.
You watched it recently?
Your guest last week kind of summed it up perfectly, that it's all of Christopher Nolan's worst tendencies as a filmmaker on display for 2.5 hours. So some really great set pieces. Great set pieces. But then after a set piece is done and you're done being wowed by it, you realize it sinks in like, oh, it's going to go back to people telling me what's going on in the movie instead of showing me what's going on in the movie and reminding me of the rules of the movie. And then, and it's kind of a bummer. It could have been so much better.
We watched it as well. I did not think it was that good, but I was still, again, going back to the initial discussion of finding enjoy, as opposed to jumping on the pain train. I wanted to find, I already knew that people didn't like it. And so I wanted to find things that I liked about it, and ultimately did enjoy watching it. But I was talking with someone else about this. I enjoyed watching it the same way I enjoy watching, I don't know if you remember these, but they sold director's series DVDs where it'd be like Spike Jonze director's series, or Michel Gondry or Chris Cunningham director's series, and they'd be like these like very auteur, generally music video.
Yeah, I used to have the Chris Cunningham where it's like all this music videos and stuff.
Yeah. And it's like all of them are like these wild concepts, like how someone came up with this concept to put something onto film and then they made it, and it's like really cool. But like you don't necessarily watch a music video to like for the story, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's
Except
what
Trapped in the Closet.
Well, Trapped in the Closet, yes.
Which we used to play Trapped in the Closet roulette, where we would just shuffle to a random scene.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
So I watched it that way, and yeah, man, thinking back on it, there's no characters like in the whole thing. When you think about
characters, literally named the protagonist.
Yeah,
and he calls himself that all the time.
Yeah,
I'm the protagonist. Okay, we get it, dude.
But like it's like his purpose or whatever. Like none of that is clear, or there's no entry point for a human being with emotion. It's an engineering film, I think is what it is.
He also abandons his ideals very quickly, because remember the early scene where he where the Batman asks him like would you do anything to accomplish this mission, even kill a woman? He's like, I'd do anything. And then later in the movie, he abandons the mission to save a woman who has like no real attachment to whatsoever. Just feels kind of sorry for her. It's weird. I don't know. It's just
and by this point, the mission is a tacked on. It's like again, engineering wise, it all makes sense. But if you are a human being with emotions that want to see those emotions and like passions reflected on screen, like you need a Leonardo DiCaprio going, my reason for going into someone's dream is to get to my kids. You need that. And there's no human attachment to anything. I actually thought that Neil, or Robert Pattinson's character, was more complex than the protagonist. But
I want a movie about his character, even though I do love John David Washington. He's amazing.
Yeah,
I love
he's
him
great.
a lot.
Character was,
and
flat.
In one scene, he'd be James Bond, who's got all the answers, and then like in the next scene, he'd be completely lost, just because it served the purpose of that scene. But I was watching it going like Elise can tell you, I was watching it going like as they're going through like the airport or whatever. I'm like, oh man, the movie's gonna come back. Like we're gonna. I like once you know and you're like watching the movie unfold and forward, you're like, oh, how are they gonna put it back together in this way? It almost felt like a video game kind of, where I was like, I can't wait till it spins back around and I want to see how they do it. And so I was excited for those reasons, but like as a full thing, I wasn't. I still think I like Interstellar less. Like I feel like I'd be less inclined to watch Interstellar again.
I want to watch Interstellar again.
I would watch it again, but I feel like Interstellar's thrust was more like an emotional. It did try for an emotional thing that just didn't hit with me at all. Whereas the rest of the movie, I was like, I don't know. I feel like I might get bored on the spaceship. I mostly identified with the guy who's like, I've been here for 90 years or whatever, waiting for you to come back.
He's been doing like quantum physics and stuff and taking naps every so often.
Poor guy. But yeah. Definitely not the big blockbuster that I would have hoped for from Christopher Nolan.
Not worth risking your life in a theater to see. Definitely.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There was another movie we watched because of a Nick rec, which is Possessor.
Possessor!
That just came to streaming, which is from the younger Cronenberg, son of Cronenberg.
Son of Cronenberg, yeah.
After this movie, no one should refer to him as David Cronenberg's son. He is Brandon Cronenberg, filmmaker, auteur, because this movie is so goddamn good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you describe this movie?
What did I was mentioning it. Let me look at text. I had a text conversation with someone.
It's an easy pitch, but it sounds complicated. So
yes,
Angela Riceborough is an assassin for a corporation. Mm-hmm. But what she does is she takes over the mind and body of someone close to the target so that when they commit the murder, then it looks like a murder-suicide, and they get away clean.
Yeah.
And her newest assignment starts to rebel against her control over his body.
Yeah, well, she's also already having her own interpersonal issues. She's clearly not in
touch
control
with
of
her own reality and connection to her life, her husband and son.
Yeah.
Because I think she's living through these conduits so much. She's becoming disconnected. Which is cool in that sense, but it's even cooler if you think like metaphorically, like she doesn't even have a handle on her own life. How could she possibly fill the shoes of someone else? And like when you think of it that way, it's like, oh, that's such a great sci-fi starting point, you know? I will say my one kind of hang up with the movie was I really like Andrea Riseborough. And once
I say Andrea, yeah, it's Andrea.
I think it's Andrea. And once you get to the point in the movie, in the spoilers, where you're really just kind of existing through, you know, her with what her conduit, like you lose her in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and for me, I was like, oh, I really like her.
I think what they maybe could have done there was they could have just had Chris Pine play the character. They just do like a thing where it starts as her and the other guy and then goes around someone and then it's just Chris Pine for the rest of the movie. I get that too, because you do spend a lot of time like identifying with her, but then she's pretty well concealed for the second half of the film.
Yeah, it is really fun to watch James Holden playing two different characters simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like it's all in his eyes too. You can see that like there's moments and shots where it's Andrea's character making a decision and then suddenly he's snapping back in and kind of questioning what's going on without a word being said.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's interesting.
I'll say,
it's very gory too. It's not for the squeamish. There are a lot of close-ups of blood squirts and practical like violence. Again, he's a Cronenberg. They love that stuff.
I was gonna say, I honestly thought it was gonna be maybe worse. I think I set myself up for something that was gonna maybe worse.
I actually was talking to Elise before the show about this. There are two versions of it, and there's the Possessor and then Possessor Uncut, which is
I don't know which one we watched, James.
So I watched the other one without knowing because I have Amazon and they don't have the uncut version. So I was like, wow, this is violent, but like I've seen way worse than this. But apparently the uncut version is like, yeah, it does not hold back whatsoever. And I think there's even like a little bit of a narrative change with the uncut version. I'm not entirely sure, but
interesting. Yeah, I guess when I hear Cronenberg, I think like maybe more body horror.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when it's violence, I'm like, violence is violence. And maybe that's just me being a completely screwed up, person or whatever. I'm like, someone gets stabbed, that's what knives do. And like, but I was expecting I went in not knowing anything. I just was like, we should watch Possessor. Okay, put on Possessor. And so, not knowing anything, I was maybe expecting a little bit more body horror, which I didn't necessarily want. And I was
his
glad.
First movie was a lot more body horror.
Oh yeah.
Antiviral. Yeah, it's about a dystopian society where people are so obsessed with celebrities, they will actually inject diseases they had to be closer to them.
Oh, cool.
And so it's about a guy who's basically the middleman. So he will take whatever disease they had, inject it himself to create a bigger like blood strain, and then they'll take it out of him and give it to people, and they pay like top dollar. It's really good, but it's like, it's if you don't like needles, it's not that's not a movie for you.
Yeah.
I don't mind needles.
Don't mind a needle. Yeah. If I get a vaccine or when I normally get vaccinated, I'll watch it, put it in. I don't care.
I can take it. Come on.
Well, it's time for another word from our sponsor, but then after that, we're going to talk about some news because Nick is a bit of a Keaton head. What I hear.
That's what I'm known for.
Hey guys, you've heard us talk about Hims before, and now it's time that you try it. If you're experiencing hair loss, this might be a solution for you. The best way to prevent more hair loss is to tackle the issue while you still have hair and you can keep it. And the solution for that is forhims.com, a one-stop shop for hair loss and also skincare and sexual wellness for men. They've got a bunch of good stuff to make you feel and look your best. It's no snake oil, pills, or gas station counter supplements. Prescription solutions backed by science is what Hims provides. It was created by a guy who knows some men's health conversations are easier online, in person. That's why you don't have to have awkward doctor's visits or stand in long pharmacy lines being anxious. For Hims connects you with licensed medical professionals online, and it could save you hours. It's completely confidential and discreet. You just answer some quick questions, and a medical professional will review and determine if it's right for you and prescribe you some medication to treat hair loss. And it's sent directly to your door. So it's all really easy and safe. Today, Hims is giving you their best offer yet. If you're not happy with your results after 90 days, Hims will give you a full refund. And right now, our listeners can get their first visit absolutely free. Just go to forhims.com/filmhouse. That's forhims.com/filmhouse, HAUS in that Filmhouse. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Remember, that's forhims.com/filmhouse. But yeah, there's a bit of movie news. Finally, I feel like this year has been a drought, but we're getting a few tidbits here and there. The one that circled the internet this past week was that Michael Keaton is reprising his role as Batman in the Flash movie that's coming November 2022. And this kind of caused some confusion because people were like, oh, is he taking over Ben Affleck's role? Which I think was clarified later. Like, no, he is not taking, this is a one-time thing in the Flash that we're going to see Keaton.
Yeah. So where does it, is that where it landed now? Because the news alerts that I was getting, like, all weekend were Warner Brothers says Michael Keaton is new main Batman.
Yeah, like he's a permanent fixture now.
He is the new main Batman, and I was like, that must be weird for like Robert Pattinson to read.
Yeah, like they were hyping up the Batman for like all of last year, and then all of a sudden, production halted or whatever, and now it's all about Keaton. I don't understand what they're.
Well,
I thought they course corrected their universe. Like
they don't know what
figured
they're
out.
doing.
Like, okay, we're gonna stop chasing Marvel.
As of yesterday, the writer that wrote the initial piece corrected and clarified that Keaton will only be in one film.
Okay.
He was offline. The writer was offline because he was moving, and then he came and he returned and he saw everybody talking about Michael Keaton and what he had written.
I realize when I was writing something that was patentedly untrue that it could potentially spread.
Yeah, he says it's just the Flash. Is what he knew.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's gonna be like a dark universe like type thing where it's like the Tim Burton Batman is from a different universe in DC.
Well,
like a multiverse type thing.
The DC movie world, I think we can all agree, basically just sits and looks at what other things are doing and then does those things worse. So, like, you know, when they see
Shazam.
What's that?
Shazam looked at big and it was like, we can do this as a superhero movie, and they nailed it.
Big.
I also like Aquaman a lot. I like
Aquaman too.
I think Aquaman was a very fun movie, and Wonder Woman won. But again, they are all just things floating out there in the ether that don't have any sort of coherence. And the problem comes when they look across the street and they go, "Well, they made a lot of money on Avengers, so let's put them in same movie." Or like, let's figure out how it all links together, and then it just becomes a big mess. And it seems like but they're not willing to commit to anything for more than like 6 months. So they change stuff. So they're like, we need
like
Batman
actors
again,
keep leaving and stuff. And there's that whole thing with Joss Whedon getting sued. And
I saw a news story that was like, I don't know how legitimate it was. Maybe maybe the writer is moving, but Christopher Nolan might be coming back to do more Batmans.
Yeah,
after Tenet not being so hot.
He's gonna come in there and be like, "I'm gonna do Lobo. Guess what? Inversion. It's gonna be a part of the Lobo universe."
Nice.
Trying it again.
I mean, I wouldn't hate another Christopher Nolan Batman.
Do we need? But is that what Warner Brothers
really
needs?
Want Matt Reeves Batman? I want to see the Batman. I love Matt Reeves as a filmmaker.
Me too.
Give him a shot. You know.
I would have been happy if it was just Michael Keaton playing an old Batman. You know, a la Alan Moore. I would have been happy with that. I think that we're all knee deep now. You know, Sony bringing back everybody from every Spider-Man that ever existed. I love it. It's really fun. But I think now everyone's like multiverse. It all has to be multiverse.
It's all because of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Not because the thing is, Into the Spider-Verse wasn't a stellar movie because
I think Days
it
of
had
Future Past as well.
Multi-universe stuff. It was a stellar movie because they made an awesome movie that happened to include multiverse stuff. Like, I don't know. It's so wacky to me that now they're like, oh, I guess what people want is like the only keyword that they pulled out of it is multiverse. And I'm like, no.
It wasn't the animation style. It wasn't the Miles Morales story.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this
it was well made is what we wanted.
I'm a big fan of Days of Future Past, the X-Men sequel, only because I also think that there are times when there are such great casting choices made in lackluster movies. And I really love when directors make the choice to revisit a great casting choice. And so for me, it's like, yes, bring, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart back. Like, I love it. But yeah, at a certain point, it kind of just crosses over into gratuitous fan service. And that's always where, like, I get a little worried about, like, tell a good story.
Yeah.
So I would have been happy with just Michael Keaton. He's Christian Bale lends him his knee brace from Dark Knight Rises, so he can kick a wall. I would have been happy with that.
Well, it sounds like we might get something similar to that, right? Because if it's,
he's still old.
He's probably gonna still be old.
He's he's not in bad shape though. Like
no. Well,
he's doing a lot of stunts in Spider-Man: Far From Home, or the first one.
Homecoming, right? Yeah, Michael Keaton. But Michael Keaton also was never like an in shape Batman in the first place.
No, yeah, he had a dad. He's always had a dad bod.
Yeah. Like he's just a man with technology and tech. So. But
and pretty face,
and a beautiful face. I love me some Keaton. He's gonna be Batman. Well, he's also gonna be Vulture. And he's also who is also in the Venom universe too, or no, Morbius. He's also in Morbius. We know that he's going to be in Morbius. Right. So Michael Keaton's in it all.
Morbius is part of Spider-Man, right?
Well, Morbius is the Sony I think Morbius is technically Venom universe, which is like only allowed to cross over with Spider-Man and nothing else. Yeah,
gotta love these studios.
We got 4 new images teasing the Uncharted movie, which are exactly the images I would expect to tease an Uncharted movie. One is a close-up of a jeweled cross on a map. The other one is the close-up of that same jeweled cross being used as a key in some kind of, old door or chest. The third is a statue of a rider, maybe a crusader on a horse covered in cobwebs. And the fourth is a map.
I love it. I love it.
I like the Uncharted games, but I'm kind of like, all right.
Yeah, it's a marketing It's a marketing department that they were like, we should probably tweet something, and then they came in and then they went.
Nick, is this too jaded a response?
No. I'm in like the camp that there has never been. Well, for a while, there was never a good video game movie. Mortal Kombat is watchable, but it's cheesy, campy, sloppy fun.
I love it.
It's not a good movie. And then technically Detective Pikachu is a video game based on a video game. And that was pretty good. And I was like, okay, I dig this. I'm not a big Pokemon fan. And then Sonic came out, and I actually loved that movie. Like, I know it's not masterpiece or anything, but it finally gave us a Jim Carrey performance, a la like Ace Ventura, like 1994 Jim Carrey. But so now I'm a little less jaded whenever they're like, we're turning this video game into a movie. I'm a little less jaded, but I'm always going into it being like, I'm not gonna pay to see this in theater, even if theaters are open. I'm not gonna pay to see this in theaters.
The thing that makes me not care about an Uncharted movie is that it's a movie based on a video game based on a movie.
Yeah.
Like Uncharted
based on old books from the 30s.
Uncharted the video game is a like unabashed send up of Indiana Jones and those types of like adventure movies. And it's literally designed to be played such that you can enjoy it the same way, like almost passively, because sometimes the interaction in those games is like pretty minimal. And still, regardless, amazing things are unfolding around you. So, like, they're not Space Ace by any means, but they are, like, only kind of a step away from it. And they are taking so much influence that the idea of putting it back into a movie seems like now we're just getting the worst version. And I hope to be corrected, but I feel like you're just setting yourself up for giving us the worst version of this.
Tom Holland's a bit young, I think, for Nathan Drake in my eyes, but I think he could be fun. I think he could just be, he's not going to be Shia LaBeouf as Mutt. I think he's going to be fun. No one will be. At the very least. But I will say I'm going to call myself out on my jadedness, because I do think if you probably looked at these 4 images and you had any knowledge of cartography, history, cultures around the world, you could probably look at contextual cues in these and get some pretty fun, interesting tidbits about the story. I would hope. Maybe they are just pictures of random maps and crosses. I don't know. But I'm going to call myself out on this.
Okay.
Try harder, Elise.
Okay. Fair. But yeah. So that's my hesitation. And again, I'm not opposed to Tom Holland being in a movie that involves going on adventuring. I just think that when your starting point is from something that's already so referential, it's like, how are you supposed to walk out of this with anything other than something referential? Like, you're setting yourself up to basically beat yourself down by like not being able to do something original.
And like the only people that may appreciate it are people that aren't aware of the video game. And they're like, oh, cool. So this is kind of like a young Indiana Jones movie. That's cool. That's neat.
Yeah.
WandaVision is days away on Disney Plus. I'm really curious in terms of how it's going to defy genre and the format of this show, because my understanding is that it plays with a bunch of different eras of sitcom and cinema and stuff, and they're doing a really cool thing where I'm not a Frozen fan by any means, but they got the songwriting duo from the Frozen franchise, Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, to write. So they're doing a series of theme songs across the show, and each theme song is going to be tailored to whatever era that episode, I guess, is sort of existing within, which I think is really cool to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those two are such amazing composers. They're so good. Like because they did Coco as well. Like they've done a ton. They're the new go-to Disney composers, and I think that like they are.
What's Randy Newman gonna say?
Well, I guess he is technically only Pixar, right? But
I had to replace him some point.
Yeah. But I do think that they've done such a great job. Whether or not you like the Frozen movies, you cannot deny that like those big hits they're bangers. They're Disney classics, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
to me, it's just that extra attention of
Into
it could
the
just be it could just be a theme song across the entire. But let's give this some detail and flair and do it that way.
Weave it into the weird story they're trying to tell.
Also, the Lopez's are big music nerds. I heard again. They were on a NPR game show that I was listening to not too long ago, and it was like for the NPR game show. They're like, "Hey, we wrote some jingles for the questions or whatever for this," and then they performed the jingles and stuff. It's like, I think they just are musically inclined geniuses.
Finally, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, Nick. I appreciate you. This will be the last thing.
Oh, yeah, no.
Justin Bieber has some one-sided feud with Tom Cruise. He posts, I don't know what is happening, but he posted like a picture of himself in a boxing ring where he's like egging Tom Cruise on to fight him. I don't really know.
Tom Cruise would mop the floor with him.
Tom Cruise
is almost
very
60
seriously.
But he's so in shape.
Yeah,
he's got the body of a 30-year-old. Ridiculous.
The only thing is that if we've learned from, I can't even remember their name. What are the brothers? The
Logan Pauls.
The Pauls.
Yeah.
If we've learned from the Pauls that you never know, white dudes will pull knockouts that they don't deserve out of nowhere. Okay.
It's all that rage.
Yeah, and so they will find a way, and so Tom Cruise would train every single day and make it his mission, but then he would also worry about his angle towards the camera, and then Bieber, while protecting his face, would swing wildly and knock him out in one. So you can never predict.
Well, I guess there you have it. Sorry, I have to sneeze. That's why I stopped talking.
Bless you. What a way to go out. Well, there it is. The sneeze.
I was like, I hope someone else will talk so I can muffle this sneeze for a moment.
I just don't have a huge opinion on Justin Bieber.
Yeah, I don't either. To me, it's just the idea of egging a 60-year-old man.
Call out, like,
yeah, it's really weird. Well, this is wonderful talking to you, Nick. Thanks so much for doing the show.
Thanks for having me.
You've
Anytime.
A wealth of movie knowledge, great opinions, and I would love to have you back once you watch Paddington 2 to get your reactions.
One caveat.
Yeah, you have to watch that before. You're not welcome here until you do that. Where can people find you and your work and just follow you?
I'm on Twitter at /Diction and Twitch as well /Diction.
Great. Awesome. And what kind of stuff do you stream?
Mostly video games. Every week I'll do a stream where I watch videos of supposed hauntings and paranormal activity, and I'll make fun of them because I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, that's great.
Why didn't you start the beginning of the podcast with that?
Yeah, let's go back.
I don't believe in ghosts.
Just cut this part and put it at the beginning, and yeah.
I'll tell you, I also don't really believe in ghosts, but I want to believe in ghosts.
I want to believe too, but until something happens to me that I can't explain, you're not going to show me a photograph or a video of a chair moving and convince me that there wasn't someone pulling a string somewhere. No, like, it's just not going to happen.
Have you walked on the moon? Do you believe that happened?
Okay.
Did you meet Helen Keller?
Open a whole can of worms there, James.
I've never opened a can of worms. Do they live in worms or cans? I don't know.
Actually, from my Ghost Watch stream, I actually discovered you can order a box of 5,000 worms for about $100 off the internet.
Okay.
How did you get to that point?
this one of the channels I watched, he opened a Dybbuk box and apparently it haunted him, and so he was just showing like all these things that were happening around his house, and one of them was just a bunch of worms outside, and he literally said there's about, I don't know, 5,000 worms here. And so the person I was watching with were just like, we just Googled it, and sure enough, the first thing popped up, 5,000 worms in a box. You can get it for $100.
I guess if you fish, you get the worms.
I think it's for like for mulch and for like
pranks.
For pranks or ghosting. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Let us know in the comments what the worms are for. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.